Hey guys, this is Healthy Life Designing. Today on the show, we have Lisa White. Lisa White has over 20 years of experience in social work, and she has her PhD in industrial organizational psychology. Today, she's joining us again on the show. It's been just about a year. She's joining us to talk about diversity and how we can find different ways to understand one another, and especially during these times. So stick around because joining us will be Lisa when we come back.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
We are back with the lovely Lisa White, and thank you so much for being here today, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again, Darian. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh my goodness. So we caught up. Oh my gosh, it's been over a year since you were on the show last.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that time has flown as fast as it has, and that we are in totally different times now.
Yes. Last time you came down from Columbus to the studio, and it was wonderful. We talked about emotional intelligence. I love the topic. I love everything that you talk about and that you're able to share. But we're kind of moving into a different direction because you are stepping into a new venture.
I am. I'm in the process of building my own consultancy and stepping out on my own and trying something new, which will be my own practice in diversity and inclusion. And I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to start my own venture and to begin a new chapter almost.
Right. Well, and I mean, it couldn't be better timing because I mean, 2020 it's been a lot of things, I guess I'll just say, and learning experiences, adversity. We're seeing some people coming out into the world not their best selves, I would say, and I'm just really inspired by what you are starting to create and how you're showing up right now. And I really feel that what you're doing is going to hopefully make a really great impact on the community. And speaking of community, New Albany is kind of where you are starting to get your feet wet.
Yes, I have started a partnership with the city of New Albany. We're starting a committee called the IDEA Committee. And I started talks with them back around this time last year. It had to be, I want to say, January or February, like earlier in the year. And they had just received some results back from their residents survey, and they were surprised by some of the findings that that some of the residents there in the city of New Albany did not find their city to be as welcoming and as inclusive as they would like it to be. And I saw an opportunity to really talk with some of the city council men in there because I had done a tremendous amount of research when I was in graduate school.
Mm.
And I really wanted to help them. I love the city of New Albany. It's so um, it's so up and coming, and there's a lot of progressiveness that is included in that city. And so I wanted to partner with them to help them on this venture. And so we've been in talks, like, how do we do this? How do we do this together? And we just started our first meeting with the IDEA committee just yesterday evening. And what a diverse group of individuals. I mean, the vast majority of them are part of the city council, but there's a representative from the library system, from the parks and recreation system, from Healthy New Albany, from the school system. We really have a diverse group of people that are going to be able to come together and brainstorm and have some good impact and ideas for that community. So it's very, very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Yes, and congrats. I mean, that's such a special thing to be a part of and to be leading it.
Yes. And just hearing their stories, and what they hope for the community. All of them really love it. And of course, like I live in the city of Westerville, but it's just, to me, it's just right down the road. So it's part of our whole community. If we can make an impact in the city of New Albany, I believe that there are things that we can model and change for other parts of the community as well. So it's really an important and groundbreaking venture that we're on.
And you and I exchanged words the other day, and one of the things that we shared a common, I'm not sure what the word would be, but I had an experience during this pandemic in July where I was traveling, and I won't say the city that I was in, but it was a very big city in Ohio, and somehow we ended up in a really, really rough neighborhood. And I got to a point that I felt very unsafe for myself, my vehicle, I mean, really my life. And I mean, it sounds like an exaggeration, but being the person that I am, a small, white, blonde-haired person driving a white Suburban, I was in a very poverty-ridden area with boarded up windows, homeless people, not a lot of businesses. There was no businesses open, actually. And I just felt it in my gut. I was telling my husband, this isn't right. Something is very wrong. We need to leave this area. We are not welcome here. And we were looking for a hotel. And in the midst of it, there were no people outside. We turned down one corner. This is in a downtown area that should be thriving. And it was quite the opposite, 100% opposite. Nothing was thriving there. And people were lined on the streets for probably 4 blocks straight. I had never been so scared in my life. Maybe a roller coaster ride or a turbulence in a train or a airplane at one point, but I can't think of any other situation that I was so scared. But as soon as I got out of it, it was an insane change for me because I felt instantly what it was like to be a person of color in a community where there's no one else like them. It's all white people, or being a police officer during the pandemic. I instinctively, right away, I was scared, I was upset, I was angry, I was all of these emotions, but at the same time, I was sad. I was just overcome with sadness. And I will never forget that moment as long as I live. It taught me a lot. And it was probably 5 minutes. It felt like probably 45 minutes. And I shared this story with you, and you and I share something. So can you talk about what we discovered in our finding and our conversation?
Oh yes, yes. We've experienced similar things, but just from a different spectrum. I know for
Yes.
myself, growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then moving to the Pittsburgh area in my late 20s, those are both very segregated cities.
Mhm.
And and even just coming here to the Columbus area, I've just lived here just like it'll be 3 years in January, but so I haven't really lived here very long, but I've done a lot of traveling throughout Ohio. Particularly, I was going back and forth a lot to Lima, Ohio, on a regular basis, and just traveling through small towns where there are like lots of Confederate flags, and I remember thinking, just driving through those areas, just feeling like, okay, I can't break down. I cannot break down on my way to getting to Lima, because I don't know what I'm going to find. Like, I don't know how many people have seen that commercial for Procter and Gamble. It's called The Look. If you haven't seen that video, but you can probably Google it on YouTube. But um, it's a common experience that we experience it for a person of color. If you go to the wrong side of town, and this is way back from when I was in Milwaukee and even in Pittsburgh, and um, haven't experienced it as much here in Columbus, but if you're like in the wrong establishment on the wrong side of town, you are going to get the stare.
Mhm.
And like if you're lucky, it's a stare of curiosity, like,
Right.
you know, isn't that interesting? Someone who is different is here, but you may not always experience that. You might experience a look of hostility. Um, like specifically, I remember like one of the last times that I experienced that really stands out for me, Darian, was me and my husband we were going to a U2 concert, and we sat next to these guys, and it's possible they may have had a little bit more to drink than they probably should have had, but sometimes that actually can bring out people's true tendencies too.
Yes.
And these two guys, they stared at us like, what are you doing? Like, what are you really doing here? And it was really hard to enjoy that experience of being in a concert when you really didn't feel like you belonged there, or
Right.
that you were accepted for being there. So I think that like you experienced it from like more of an urban perspective, and but I think that like people of color kind of experience that on a daily basis, and there's still places in the country that we could go and we would not, there's states that we would go that we would not feel welcome, or that we would not feel
Right.
that we would have the same type of opportunity that we would in a place like Columbus.
Right.
So,
And
there's limitations that we experience probably on a daily basis.
right. And that leads me into asking about your childhood, because that's a factor as well that kind of set you up going through a few hardships during your childhood.
Oh yes, yes. Well, first of all, like I think that I have a different dimension from a lot of other people. Now, like not only am I obviously an African American woman, but I was born premature with bilateral clubfoot. And so like I'm pretty able-bodied now, but I went through like multiple surgeries from like my toddlerhood on, corrective surgery so that I would be able to be able to live a normal life. So I think that I have a different perspective than a lot of people have in terms of ability.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I was a toddler, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but then we moved out to the suburbs, into like Waukesha County, where there really were not a whole lot of people of color. There was some Latino. There's like some areas of Waukesha that had like a larger Latino population, but we didn't live in that area, so there wasn't really a whole lot of mixture, like you as you would say, between the races there. And things were pretty good for me, like when I was really small, because I think that people, when we're really young, we don't really see color. Like it's like all the things that you learn in kindergarten, you do, like you treat others
Right.
with respect, and you
Yes,
cooperate, and you share, and
absolutely.
like you learn all these wonderful things when you're small. So it really didn't hit me probably until I turned about like 9, 10, and it's like it's not as cute to see, like, the kids playing together, and it became harder and harder to find friends that, where I was invited, to come over and play and different things like that. um so that did give me like a different perspective to see that happening in my life. And it takes a toll on you emotionally in terms of your self-esteem. And so when I started thinking that, like, now that I'm older, and once I graduated with my PhD in industrial organizational psychology, I wanted to make an impact on not only how people are able to make that adjustment within their own personal lives, but it's really about like the health of our communities, and
Oh yeah.
um, being able to accept one another, and find those pathways to connectedness with one another, even though we may come from different backgrounds and share differing experiences.
Right. Well, we are going to take a quick break right there, but stick around, because when we come back, Lisa and I are going to talk a little bit more about her plans and her goals in the future of what she's wanting to do to help make our communities a little bit better. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
We were retiring from Tucson, Arizona, and we made a retirement trip out around Ohio, having decided that's where we wanted to be. And we came across this town called Lancaster, and we fell in love with the downtown area where the fountain is, and the memorials and the flags and all the stuff. And we looked around and I said, there's our bank right there.
There's something to be said about a community bank in your hometown.
Right. If you live in the community, you should do business in the community as much as possible. So it makes sense to bank with the community bank where you live.
Fairfield Federal is the bank to be at. If you live in this town, or any town actually, you want to bank at a local home bank. And the employees are happy here, they're conversant, customer service is through the roof. There's nothing more you could ask for.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Hey guys, we're back. We've been talking to Lisa White. We've been talking about diversity and kind of how her upbringing and her childhood, and some of the difficulties that she's faced in her own life has led her into a new journey that she's been on to bring more social awareness around diversity. And Lisa, I think one thing that stands out is what hardships that you go through to lead you where you are right now, and not only builds character, but it's empowering. Once you see everything that you've gone through, you look back and you probably pull and you retrieve different things. I mean, even because you're in the thick of it right now, I'm sure it's surfaced things for you that you probably forgot that you left behind years ago in your childhood, that you're like, wow, I overcame all of these different things.
Yes. Yeah, and it does give you a sense of resiliency. Like, you can take personal tragedy or hardships that you've experienced and be able to turn them around and build your own self-awareness as a result of this. And what I'm hoping to do as a result of leading this group through New Albany or in any other ventures that I encounter as a result of my diversity consultancy is to help build social awareness too. I think that that's the key is, and it harkens back to some of our earlier conversations around emotional intelligence. It's all interconnected, because those early childhood experiences that you're talking about, that's what builds our belief systems. And like, our belief systems give us that foundation to build the resiliency, but it's also the birthplace of where our stereotypes begin as well. And it's all about, like, taking that and kind of, bringing some shining a light on it so that we may be able to dismantle it and look at it from a different perspective.
What are some of the things that you have found that people of different ethnicities, races, just in your own experience, in your own observation, what do you find are some of the biggest obstacles that people don't even understand, that they're standing in each other's way of just having a conversation with someone of a different color or a different race? I mean, like, I think of being at a grocery store and being in line at a checkout with someone that's 100% opposite from me in every single way possible. I'm always a curious person, so I'm interested in, like, ooh, who is this person in town? Like, are they somebody famous? Are they a rock star? Are they just a new business owner? But that's because I have a curious mind. And I know a lot of people aren't like that. And they're more like what you had mentioned earlier. Who is that person? Or what are they doing here? There's some sort of barrier or something. That's, I mean, is that what you had just talked about? Is there a word for that? It's what's built in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There is a word for that. And
okay.
I don't know how familiar that you are, or that you may be knowledgeable about unconscious or implicit biases. And we all have them. It's just like our brain's way of trying to make sense of people who are different from us. There's not just one type either.
Right.
There's like lots of different types of unconscious or implicit bias. And I think that we're probably most familiar with racial biases because it's probably the most talked about. There's especially a lot of biases when it comes to the hiring process. And there are, like, just for example, gender biases. A lot of the research says that there is a bias towards the hiring of men. People, even women feel that men are more capable during the hiring process. Like, men are hired for their potential. their potential in situations where women are hired more based on their experience. They have to like prove that they're worthy of these
Yes.
positions.
Yes.
Or even just like when women assert themselves. When men assert themselves, they are seen as leaders, and they are seen
Yes.
as, you know, being able to um, exude confidence.
Right.
Whereas women, when they assert themselves, they're being, you know, they're too bossy, like, you know, they're too
Uh-huh.
big for their britches.
Yep.
Or like if women are not quite as assertive, they may, or they may, if they're like kind of more gentle, they're seen as like not nearly as competent.
Right. Or weak or not strong,
Yeah.
or you're not a leader just because you're nice and you have a kindness about you, that you're not able to lead a program or a group in something.
Right, right. So
Yes.
there's it's kind of recognizing what are your biases about people in different situations, whether it is a social interaction, whether it is someone who is seeking opportunity, and where we live. You know, like what are the barriers to being able to have access to housing options, or um, you know, being able to pursue entrepreneurship, different things like that.
So, what are your goals moving forward for the future in your consulting? What are some of the things or the ideas that you have that you feel like are going to really bring people together and have more understanding?
I think that the first thing, and this is the first step in any consulting job. Like, I'm just getting started in the city of New Albany, so there's a lot more to do. There's miles and miles to go before we sleep there. Just miles to go. But the first thing is understanding like the difference between diversity and inclusion. Verna Myers, she's a prominent diversity advocate, and like she points out that a lot of people feel like, you know, diversity and inclusion, like they're used interchangeably, like they're the same thing. That they're not really the same thing. In like diversity is being invited to the party, but then inclusion is being asked to dance. And if we can achieve that in the city of New Albany, where we can maybe have more conversations around this, where residents are able to talk with one another and have more opportunities to talk to other people who may be different from one another, then, you know, you're going to find more of those opportunities for understanding, but also inviting other people into our world. And that is like the opportunity to create equity,
Mm-hmm.
where there's transparency, like everybody receives the same rewards and the same benefits and the same consequences. That is the product of any diversity initiative, is that you want to achieve a sense of equity. And you do that by opening the door of conversation, opening the door for inclusive events and activities, and it can be a lot of fun. It can be, it's what you make of it, but it can be an opportunity for growth and understanding, but it can be tons of fun.
If there's any kind of advice that you would like to leave with just everybody out there that wants to be a better person in the community, try to understand people a little bit better, I mean, what's something that you would like to leave everyone with?
I would like to just encourage everyone and empower everyone to open their hearts and their minds to being able to, just like we're doing right now. Like,
Yes.
both of us come from, different worlds and different experiences. Having these conversations with one another, like, and not jumping to conclusions
Right.
about why we feel that way, just exploring with one another why we might feel differently, or what leads you to a different understanding. We have tremendous opportunity to be able to do that for one another. And like this conversation that we're having right now is just one piece in that puzzle. And I really hope that anyone who's watching this is encouraged to do that, and take the conversation further.
Absolutely. I mean, just in our conversation earlier, before we got on here today, I walked away feeling a whole different sense of understanding. Whereas I thought I understood and I have compassion for people, you really don't know someone else's story. And I mean, it can be really close to home and not even know it, but it could be a healing process just having the conversation with somebody different. And just that one day, one conversation of healing might be all that person's needed for maybe years of their life, just to be heard and understood.
I think that's why there's so much anger.
Yes.
There's so much anger and tension right now, because I think that people are craving that. They're craving the opportunity to be heard and understood and to be seen. And if we can accomplish that, like, this is the time. This is the time right now to do that today.
Absolutely. Well, that is all that we have time for. Lisa, if you could share information and where people can find you, could you do that?
Yes, I could. Like, my email is lisa.white 3785 at gmail.com. You can send me an email. You can also find me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would encourage you to do that. I'd love to chat with folks who might have an interest in what I'm doing, and I hope to connect with you soon.
Well, thank you so much again for coming back onto the show and sharing a little bit more of your personal story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Darian.
Sure
Good
thing.
to be here.
All right, guys, that's it for today. This is Healthy Life Designing. Connect with somebody different. Don't be afraid to try something new, have a different sort of conversation, be open to change, be open to possibility, and, do it from a place coming from your heart. And you never know what that's going to do for somebody else. So that's what I'm leaving you with today. Until next time, we will see you soon.